Hi, Julie.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I think. Yeah, just about. It's better.
Yeah, trying to set up uh burn.
See if I can make sense of this week's meeting.
Yeah, yeah, I'm on my laptop, so I don't have my usual stuff. I did bring my tour box with me so I can move things around a little bit better, but I'm in a hotel in Hornell, New York.
Oh, right, working?
No, I'm going to a night photography workshop in Nova Scotia and then
Ah,
coming back down for my father's funeral in August.
oh,
So,
right.
um, so just I got three tripods, three camera trackers, my macro rig, and my laptop with me.
Ah,
So the car's full. So just doing hotel laundry. I left Alabama on Monday. Ham sister's college. She was the one that's also going to
yeah.
put them in hand. I die.
Where can I find it?
You have to go to Alan's page
I did.
and on
His
the
Patreon page?
or just the Alan Walls photography, and then his um newsletters. The link is on that.
Website, net worth, wife, reviews.
Hang
I'm
on.
on Alan Wall's
Blog
photography.
planning.
Yeah. Alan Walls photography. Let me bring up the yeah, Alan Walls photography work, and then the newsletter, articles and videos, and the link is down there for today. It's,
Enter the Academy Professional Services. Become a Patreon.
yeah,
This is Alan Wall's photography. I mean,
yeah,
this is getting ridiculous. I can't find it after dark.
yeah, it's AlanWallsPhotography.com, and then you go to articles and videos. Not not what it might be on Patreon. Yeah. And then articles and videos, and then come down a little bit past the picture of his new studio, and then come down. Yeah, yeah, then come down the AfterStack for Saturday. The link is down there.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, one and all.
Morning, Brad.
Yeah, that's lit. Okay.
Welcome to AfterStack number 3. Didn't think I was going to make it, did you?
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I did cut it a little close this morning. I was interviewing until the wee hours of the morning this morning, and trying to get the Charlie Krebs interview ready for release this weekend. It was a fantastic conversation, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I hope that my 3D printer isn't making too much noise. Can you hear it, Bud?
Yes, I can.
Is it off-putting? I'll let you do the talking. The plan today was that we were going to get some input from you guys on how you refine masks. But I have a feeling that Bud probably has some workflow that he wants to go through first. Bud, do you want to do a recap from last week?
Yeah, let me see if I can get it ready to go here. Looks like we have
Does anybody have any questions or concerns or issues they want to bring up before we get started?
I want to say I'm working, and so if I bounce out, it's not because of anything you did, Bud, or you, Alan.
Okay, glad you mentioned that.
See, I'm working.
Got it.
Okay, I got that one up. I got Photoshop open. Yes. Don't need this one anymore. Let me quit a few things here just to give myself some room. Don't need that one open. That one. Keep that one open. Okay. Let's see. Where are you guys? Here we are. All right, so I need to share screen here.
All yours. I am going to mute my audio. And over to you, Bud.
All right, let's see what we can open here. Okay, we're opening this one. I think you hold down the command to keep selecting them, or is it shift? Shift. Okay. And we want to can everybody see the slide?
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a quick recap of what we did last time. I'm not going to read everything like I did last time. It seemed boring, but I will show you what is here and what I thought was important enough to recap. So I've pretty much done step by step on a few things. And if you just go through this part of Alan's video, you can pick them up. So what we went into was advanced. It was lab color inside of an RGB file. It's a nice way to put in really defined color. LAB is the most powerful color space in our digital world, and where you can increase color with saturation, LAB color pulls colors apart. So if you imagine having a yellow, you can make it brighter with saturation, but LAB pulls it apart so that you have a light side and a dark side to the yellow. And so it gives more definition in the color than you can get with a hue saturation slider. And this is how to do it and keep it inside of an RGB file, which is kind of tricky, but you do it inside of a smart object. And a smart object is like a Ziploc bag. Once it's zipped, you can put things around the outside of it, but you can't do anything to its contents. But you can open that smart object by double clicking it. And when you do so, you get a tab at the top of your screen. So what I have shown you here is how to convert it to a smart object. You get the icon. The thumbnail is what you're going to double click. And there's a hamburger menu up here, which gives you this whole system. So if you double click on the hamburger, that's what people call it. It's 3 lines. You get this menu, convert to a smart object, and then you double click it to open it. And when it opens, it looks like all of your layers have disappeared, but they haven't. All you're looking at is the interior contents of the smart object. The rest of the RGB file is still there. And when you close the smart object, lo and behold, everything is back and you have the smart object on its own layer. So this is all about how to do that. So here you open the smart object by double clicking. This shows you where your menus are. At the top menu, top of the screen, there's image. You go to modes and you choose LAB, and it changes that thumbnail inside the smart object that's now looks like your background layer. It changes that into LAB color space. This is not affecting your entire RGB file, just the interior of this smart object. So once you have LAB color, then you open a curve. And when you open that curve, you will see at the top, it says lightness. I don't know whether you can see my cursor or not. Anybody see the cursors?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so you see lightness, and there's a drop-down menu that gives you lightness, A and B. So A and B, they've divided the color spectrum into half, put half of it into A, half of it into B. A basically is magenta green axis, and B is basically yellow blue axis. So think B is blue. So this will tell you how to do it. It's nice to have 10 by 10 squares on your grid, and you get that. If you don't have it, you just hold down the Alt or Option key and you click on this background anywhere and you get 10 squares. You click on it again and you go back to the default. 10 makes it easy, and it's important with what we're going to do next. So we're going to slide these things. We're not bending the curve at all. We're using these bottom sliders. Where you can see my orange arrows, and we're sliding this one in 3 squares. We're sliding this one in 3 squares. The important thing is if it goes right through the middle, then your black will stay black. You don't get a color shift. Okay. And so we're going to do this for the A and the B channel, and you end up with something ridiculously colored that looks like this. But that's what we want, because we want to be able to take our colors too far, because we're going to paint it in through a black mask, a hide all mask. So when we've got the changes made on that curve, we're ready to close the smart object. And the way you close it is you go up to the tab and you hit the close button. And it asks you if you want to save it, and you say yes, because when you save it, it takes that smart object and brings it back into your RGB file. Okay. So now you're able to take this really prominent color and you're able to paint it with a low flow or low opacity. You paint the areas that you want color. I usually use 1 or 2% of flow with 100% opacity. And I can paint in where my colors are anemic and make them much more pleasing to the eye. And I find it is far superior to the hue saturation, which will certainly give you some color, but it won't give you the kind of color that you can generate this way. Questions? Okay. So aligning images.
Yes, I've got a question. Sorry. I didn't have my sound on. When you say you painted, are you now back in Photoshop, or are you still painting while you're in the smart object?
No, you're in Photoshop.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
If LAB is superior, and that's what I've always used in industrial applications, why do you start out in RGB and then switch? Why don't you just start in LAB?
I'm just not familiar enough with all the different tools, because some work in LAB and some I find won't. So that's the only reason for me. But if you can show us how to do it, let me finish this and we'll please do so. This is how to align. This was a foot that wasn't in focus, and it was a second run that I had a first run that did have a foot in focus. When you change the top layer, the one that is in focus, into a difference blend mode, you can move them around using the move tool and your arrow keys until you get a perfect alignment where everything starts to turn totally black. And at that point, you can paint in the top layer and you have replaced the foot. So difference is a very cool way for adding parts that may be missing. You can rotate this using the transform, and you can certainly change things using the puppet warp. So all of those things can be applied to the small foot that you've chopped out of the first run and applied into the second run with it all aligned. There are 8 special blend modes that we mentioned. These are the ones that fill effects. So you go down through a lot of these color dodge, linear burn, linear dodge, vivid light, linear light, hard mix, and difference. And what you find is that you open it and it's just horrible colors, and you don't know why anybody would ever build such a thing. But if you reduce these things to about 15% on the fill, then all of a sudden the magic starts to happen, and you can use linear light, for instance, as a combined dodge and burn tool, which increases the contrast quite a bit. So a lot of people are turning their attention toward linear light in the world of Photoshop currently. So you might give it a shot. Remember, change the fill to 15%, and then try painting over things and see how it compares to a normal dodge and burn. And the last slide is the multiply and screen blend modes. Basically, these are transports. You don't use them to bend the curve. You don't do anything but change the blend modes. And then you put a black mask on them. And when you paint through that mask, here is the black mask totally, here's the black mask totally white. And you see how much darkness we have added with multiply. And this one down here is the black mask. And you see that I have painted onto his back to show that you can selectively put this amount of darkening onto wherever you want with a reduced flow rate. I use flow more than opacity, and I paint with white, you know, at say 10%, and I can just artistically put this stuff in wherever I want. So remember that the blend modes can be used, they just need a transport, and it doesn't matter whether it's levels or curves or hue saturation. Any of those adjustment layers can be used. Just change the blend mode and don't mess with the layer itself. And that is the last of the recap I have. Comments? Helpful?
Very good. A lot of detail in there, bud.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll, let's see, I'm gonna have to move this thing. Shall I put it, I guess, at the top? Put it up there. All right, so now let's go into Photoshop. I have to look around the camera here. And this is one that Jillian sent. You want to tell us about it, Jillian?
There is a Proteus seed. It's the king Protea, called Proteus aneroides, and I've got about 15 Proteus seeds that I'm taking photos of. I now have Zarine, so this is probably about 10 images, I think, which, because I'm doing it vertically, I'm actually manually turning the lens, and Zarine's putting it together beautifully. And the finished, I think I gave you, I can't remember if you picked these up off, did I WeTransfer you to? Did you take this off the internet?
Let's see.
Because what I found, once it was stacked, a lot of the edge hairs were absolutely fine, but there was a bit of smudging. So I thought if I did want something with a white background.
This is yours, right?
Yeah. I think I put it in Discord.
I'm sorry?
I think I sent you a PM in Discord with it.
I think I picked this one up off of WeTransfer.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, I thought you might want a white background.
Okay. So you were trying to get a white background and you were using various things apparently to try to get there. Do you know what the info panel tells you?
But that looks to me more like the finished one as opposed to the starter one.
Okay, well, we can turn all the eyeballs onto the finished product. What I wanted to do is to back off down to basically, let's go to layer 0. And what I wanted to show you is a way that we can tell what is happening in the white background, because our eyes and the monitors will fool us, but mathematics doesn't care. If you go up to the window menu at the top, one of the things you can choose is the info panel. Everybody see that okay? Anybody use this thing?
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Yep.
Okay. So the info panel lets you put markers down. In other words, if I hold down the shift key, I think I can do it with this one. Nope, I got to get rid of that. Hang on a second. I've got to quit this little thing here. Okay. Eyedropper. So I have the eyedropper in hand. Let me get rid of that little dot. And I'm going to hold down the shift key and I can put a marker there. And when I do so, I get number 1. This is number 1. And it shows me what the values of RB and G are. I can put another one down in here. And it shows me what the values of RG and B are. I can put one down in here. And again, I have RGB values. So what I'm doing, if I'm going to take this thing and get a white background, one of the things I can do is just use a curve. Let me take, I'm just going to duplicate your layer. I won't save it. Let's see, we'll duplicate it. Command J. There's our copy. I'll turn off the bottom one. And we're just add a curve on top of this one. And with this curve, we can start moving this white slider backwards, and we can watch these numbers on the info panel turn to 255. Okay. So at that point, all 3 of those white markers are 255. Let's see, we got one up there that needs a little more. 255 across the board. So even though this still looks gray to my eye, the mathematics says that my eye is fooling me, that it's an optical illusion, that that's actually white. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, you know, we have a white background. Make sure everything else is turned off above. It is. And so can we do a better job of, the way you remove these things is shift is the way you place them, and shift option is the way you remove it. It turns into scissors. Okay, so the option plus the shift, and you can get them out of your picture. Okay.
Bud, can you change the color space on the info panel?
Yes, absolutely. You see this number here? So you can go down to LAB.
Okay.
And then you can use LAB. You can also go to black and white, which is grayscale. And I can tell that my black's at 6%, and I've changed it to 0%. The 0 is black, and 255 is white.
Would you typically work in LA or in RGB?
I typically do, yeah, but I use LAB a lot when I want to bring an effect back into the RGB. But I know there's a guy named Margulis that wrote the book on LAB, and quite a famous Photoshop guy, and he used LAB for everything. I'm not that sophisticated. So at any rate, let's talk about making a mask if we want to do stuff with this. If I wanted to make a mask and I say, you know, select subject or something, let me get one of these. This is always in the way. Let's see. Layer 0, select subject. If I do a select subject, it's going to give me a mask. I'm going to go ahead and make a mask on layer copy there. And so when I make a mask, that mask is going to look like this. And nobody's going to think that's a good mask. That's select subject. Okay. So let's go backwards. let's try instead remove background, see if it does a better job. It looks like it's going to be the same. You can see all the white in between the fine hairs of this seed. So that's not any good. One of the things that I've found that does work pretty well is if you go up to Object. I have it set on a rectangle. You can do it on a lasso, but let me just, I didn't get quite all of it, but you'll get the effect. And when we make a mask with this one, it's the same thing. So we haven't gained much ground. So what we need to know is about masks and selections. And mask and selections are sort of cousins. They do the same sort of thing, but the masks live in a place called channels. I would love it if they just said masks, because that's basically what happens. If you go to the red channel, there's a red channel mask. If you go to the green channel, oh, it's got even more contrast. What about the blue channel? Most contrast yet. If I click on this with a command key down, it'll turn this mask into a selection, this channel. If I do that, I can come back up to layers and I can make this into a mask. If I reverse this mask and put black of some sort under it, let's put a solid color and maybe a charcoal color. We'll move it down below it. Okay. Move it down below it, and you can see it made a much better mask. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use those channels as a mask source. All right. So let's go back to the channels, and you can see that we made a mask. When we put it, we made a color fill mask because we made a solid color. All the masks that you make are stored in channels, and you can access them. So I can go back and click on any of these and make it into a selection, go back to layers and make it into a mask. So I thought at this point, let's go back to layers and let's go back into our channels. I'm going to reverse this back just so you can see what I want to show you. I'm going to do the command dial on this one and put it back to where it was. We'll go back into channels and you can see that they're all black and white now. So here's our red. So those don't change because we have a mask. So let's turn off the mask, look at channels, and you can see that there is a difference. Turn off. There you go. So there's the red, there's the green, and there's the blue. So the blue has the most contrast. How can we take this channel and improve upon it? What you don't want to do is you don't want to mess with the original channels. That will change your color and all badness will happen. So what you want to do is you want to duplicate this channel. And the way you do that is you grab this blue channel and you drag it down to the new channel icon. And now you have a blue copy. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Grab it, drag it to the new, and you get a copy. Now with this copy, we can do all sorts of different things. The easiest thing to do is you can't put an adjustment layer on a channel. It doesn't work. So if you wanted to change the contrast, the only way you can do it is up here under image. The second one down is adjustments, and look at there's levels. There's curves. If we pull up levels, we can make the background whiter. We can make this darker, and we have a mid-tone slider, which does what you think it would do. So we can augment what we have by playing with this kind of a slider. Okay, so we can make this quite a bit darker than the blue channel before it. And so the darker this is, when you convert it, the whiter it'll be, and then more it'll show the seed. Because obviously now we're blocking the seed and only showing the background, because white reveals and the black conceals. What else can we do down here in channels? Have to keep that turned off. You can only have one eyeball or it starts turning red and gets funky. So just have the one eyeball. Usually you can click and it changes for you, but if it doesn't, turn off the RGB. Okay. I'm going to go into a scary place now. We'll turn on the blue channel. So let's see, is this a better one? Hang on.
Bud, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
By using channels, you're making a much better selection from which to construct the mask. Is it your intention to end up with a mask that is so precise that you don't then need to improve on it or modify it in the layers panel? If not, why does it matter how good your selection is at the beginning? When you clicked on select subject, yeah, it wasn't a particularly accurate mask that you created. But if you're going to have to modify the mask anyway, if you're going to have to improve the mask, what does it really matter if the initial selection is a bit scrappy? That's for me, it's all about the number of steps that I'm going to take. If I am going to take the additional steps to make a more accurate mask, it really needs to be so accurate that I don't then need to improve upon it. Is that where you're headed with this, or are you still going to need to refine the mask?
In this instance, there's almost no mask refinement needed, but in the bug instance, a lot of hairs, they form closed loops and things, and you have to go over it with multiply or darken or, another blend mode to clean it up a little bit. So what I was hoping to show folks is that there are other ways to make a mask, if they need more accuracy. If they don't, we're going to watch how you do it and how much quicker it will be.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
But what we're seeing is that channels can be used to make a mask.
Sure.
And all right, I'm going to take you there. We go into a place called calculations. Is that pretty scary?
That's pretty scary.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to, let's just make another, let me cancel this for a second. I'm going to go to the blue channel and just make another blue channel copy. So we're not starting at the wrong place. Here's the blue channel copy. Go into calculations. And what does calculations do? It takes, there's a box up here. There's a box in the middle. And then down here, there is how you blend it. And then you can do a new channel. So I can change this to multiply. And what I'm going to do is just take the blue copy channel and I'm going to merge it with the blue copy channel and output it to multiply as a new channel. I can make a new document or I can make a selection. I was going to do a new channel just so you could see the effect. All I got to do is hit preview. And here is my new channel. And look how intense that new channel is. It's a lot more black and white than, a regular blue copy. Here's the blue. There's with channels. You just do it to itself on multiply and you can get a great mask. It's not hard. I mean, it's a scary looking thing, and God knows who named it channels. I mean, calculations, with everybody scared to death of math. But let's take a look at it. You know, it's taken, right now it's looking at an alpha channel, but you can go and get the blue copy. And you can go and get the blue copy. But you know, that's where you want to play. You got multiply. You can change it to anything you want to play with. And then you output it to whatever you want to output it to. And that's it. You can preview it. You can change its opacity. Preview. So anyway, that's the way I use calculations. I just take a channel, play against itself. You know, then I'm going to go and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hold down the command button, which will turn it into a selection. I go back into my layers panel. Let's get rid of that one. And whoops, I didn't want to do that. And we have a selection, and we'll just make a mask of it. And we need to reverse the mask. Command I. That's still something under the channels here. Let's see, this one's still lit up. Sorry about that. And there you have, you know, a selection with some of the hairs around it. And this is where you would take the multiply, I think, and Alan, and start moving the background stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah, I do two steps. Once I've got a mask in place, then I'm going to want to add back the mask where it has inadvertently not been, well, I'm going to add mask where it needs to be added and remove it where it needs to be taken away using different blend modes, but in a pretty quick and dirty process.
Can you share screen and show us?
Yeah, I sure can.
Let me get out of this one.
I'd like to do it with that image. Do I?
I sent it to you this morning by WeTransfer.
Brilliant. Okay, let me find it and open it, and then I'll share.
Can I answer a question about that? I know it was just pretty advanced.
But I had a
Yes.
question.
Go ahead.
Could you bring up the image again?
Yeah.
Now, when you were working in channels, you did all the work on one color selection. Would it make sense at that point? Can you click on the channels?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you worked everything off of what, the blue?
I did. You can combine them. Is that what you're talking about?
Would you then go through and do the green and the red and then use all of them to make sure that you grabbed every color?
I haven't tried that. The RGB would do the same thing, would it not?
I don't know. You're the expert. That's why I'm asking.
I haven't taken it that deep. But what you can do is where I use channels to put blue against blue, I could put blue and green together. Or I could put blue and red together. You know, so you can start playing with combinations and see what works for your particular image.
Well, what I was thinking is that if you started with the blue and then added the green and then added the red, you were positive that you grabbed every color mask that you could.
That's a good point. Okay. I'll have to give that a try.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think what you're looking for is just to make one that has the most contrast. If you want to do a selection of the entire image, and different images will have different channels that will be fairly inclusive of the whole image. So like in a landscape, maybe the green channel would pick up a majority of the image as far as making a mask.
Yes.
So a lot just kind of depends on the image in the background. If you're just looking at this to make a luminosity mask or a straight selection mask,
Right. So these are basically based on the luminosity of those three colors. It's like color separation with film in the old days. They had red, green, and blue, or CMYK color separations. So this is basically the same. You take those three masks, you put red, green, and blue against them, and it turns it into a color image. But you can also do luminosity masks other ways. And of course, the TK panel, which I've told everybody they ought to own, is really phenomenal at doing that. If I wanted to go into, let's say, this image, and I wanted to pick out a luminosity mask, I can look at the brighter masks, and I can keep going until I have a mask that I really like. The light gray up here is a mask modifiers, whereas the dark background is the output. So if I wanted to modify this mask, I could grab levels. I could say I want the white to be whiter, and I could get rid of most of that debris in between the limbs. So when I made a mask of it, let's see. Let's take layer 0, turn it on, highlight it, and let's make a mask with it. And there's our mask on layer 0 based on the TK panel, and it's almost a no-brainer.
But does everyone know, you sort of going quite quickly saying it's available, but it is a free plugin. It's about 2020, they made it available to everybody who had Photoshop. You just have to add it.
It's an older model. I think it's TK6, and he's up to TK9.
Yeah, but it still seems to do what I need to do anyway when it does.
Oh,
when I use
it has everything that I just showed you up at the top, where you click on this, which is a luminosity mask maker, and it pops open. These are dark masks, these are bright masks, and these are mid-tone masks. If I wanted to make a mid-tone mask, you say, okay, there's, the mid-tone mask based on whatever I had highlighted. Let's see, let's go to, let me X out of that and go to, let's take this one, for instance, and turn it on. And we'll look at a mask, and we can say, okay, I'm looking at the whiter side, highlights. So somewhere in there is my whites, but I really want the black. So let's take this side and see how restrictive we can be when we select a mask. And there's one that has most of the detail. I come down to the mask modifier. I can use curves, and you can bend the curves to make the darker, and you can bring up the whites to make the whites whiter. And so you can create a pretty defined mask with it.
You ever done frequency?
Frequency separations?
Yeah.
I have, yeah, with low frequency and high frequency. And this TK thing actually has that built in. If you go and click on this thing at the bottom, frequency separation is right there.
How does that work for something like this or hairs? I've used it in the past on like face texture, but
it breaks a blur a blur, Gaussian blur, and you just say okay.
Mhm.
And let's see, where is it? Here's texture, color repair, and color blur all inside of this folder called frequency separation. So you can go in and paint and change things to basically create that separation. It's high frequency and low frequency. So low frequency would be like a broad place on a face doing portrait work. And high frequency would be hair.
Or blemishes on the face. That's what I
blemishes.
used it for,
Mhm.
was for face smoothing without making it look plastic.
Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't going to get into that, but that's how you do the frequency separation.
Hey, Bud,
Yes, sir.
when you select right at the beginning, when you made the white whiter, are you in danger of blowing out objects in the subject? So any specular highlights within the object?
Well, specular highlights by definition are already blown.
Well, say any tones that are just
That are
slightly
near, yeah.
very near.
Yes, you are. So you have to pay attention to, go back and forth and see if you have all of the detail that you want, and if you've lost anything, you can always paint it back in. But
Right.
you want to get as much of the garbage gone, at least I do, as possible before you have to go into it. It just makes it quicker for me. But
Yeah.
I've been doing this mask stuff with luminosity masks and channels for quite a while. I haven't delved into every aspect of it for sure. I mean, that's not what I do for a living or did for a living. So, I'm a hobbyist, as we all are.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Alan,
Yeah.
you want me to stop sharing so you can show us your way?
Yeah, I can do that. I was just making sure I had the image. Let me get to it real quick. So for me, the priority is to come up with, not to invent a different way, but to find a way to refine a mask as quickly as possible so that I could get through a lot of images. And that means for me using as few steps as possible to get a result that works. Now, this is an unusually difficult image because of the fine detail, the crossing detail. But it's a pretty decent example, I think, of to show my workflow. What I do is, if what I was trying to do was replace this white background with, say, a blue background, though it would work for anything. I find it easier to do with dark backgrounds, but it works with light backgrounds too. What I do is I make a copy of the background layer, and on the copy I do select subject. And I've already done this while you were talking, Bud, just to save some time. But I'll make a selection using well, actually, I'll just do it again. I'll go back to the first layer. I'll make a copy, Command J. On that copy, I'll select the subject. And just like you got, it gives you a pretty awful selection, but I don't worry about that for right now. I take that and click on the mask, make the mask that just like you did, and it's awful. It's got all kinds of stuff cut out that I don't want cut out, and it's got mask missing where it needs to be. Not a problem. The next thing I'll do is I'll put in my background layer, which is just adding an extra layer and then filling it with my gradient or my color. I'm just going to move this layer down there, seeing as it's a solid color. Now, with the mask then turned on, I'm left with a pretty clear image of what's been cut out that shouldn't have been, and what's not been included that should have been. Now, in order to refine the mask, I'm going to just work directly on the mask itself, And there are two operations that need to be done. The first is I need to remove the mask where it doesn't need to be. To do that, I use a black brush. So B for brush, X to change it over to the black, the paint, because I'm going to be adding mask to the selection that I mean the mask the way it's already set up. But like you do, Bud, I use opacity 100%, and I take my flow down to wherever it needs to be. It's usually low, 2-3%, something like that. And I use a multiply blend mode. That the reason for this is it will allow me to paint out, or I should say, to add in mask, and it's going to preferentially do that in the lighter areas, so that the parts of the image that are actually image are going to initially be spared. Now that means I can start to paint out the paint in, I should say, the mask. And if I inadvertently go over onto the subject, it's going to let me get at 1 or 2 passes before it starts to kill the subject too. So I'm adding mask and somewhat sparing the subject. Now, if I go to a higher flow rate, it means I have less wiggle room. It'll mask the areas faster, but it will give me less leeway if I do cross over onto the subject. Now, this, like I say, this example is really, this would take me hours to do like this. And certainly refining the mask in a case like this, the way you did using channels, would be a great way to speed this up. But I'd still have to do this, and I'd still go over every hair. So what it's doing is it's letting me get the mask more and more accurate, but you can see I'm starting now to fade out this lower spine where I've crossed over. So after I'm finished going over the whole thing, and usually this is going around the edge of a bug is what I'm doing, and most of the time the selection's pretty good, so there's very little I have to do, and it's just in the problem areas that I'll go to this much trouble. But let's say I painted out most of these 2 hairs. In the second part of the process, after I'm finished adding mask, I'm going to want to go back and add back the subject that I inadvertently weakened with this brush. So I just hit X to switch to a white brush. I'm going to either use screen or overlay. If it's a white background, screen seems to work better. Overlay works better with a black background. But now, using, again, the same low flow rate, high opacity, I can go back, and now when I paint on the subject, it will preferentially give remove the mask from the subject before it starts adding the mask back into the background. So this is kind of a complementary. Let me try it on overlay, see if it's any better. But by using the blend mode, it lets me, all this is doing is preferentially letting me either add to the mask or take it away based on luminosity. And it just, in most cases where it's a fairly straightforward edge of a bug, this is all I need. This is all I need to get the subject filled in where the mask has blanked it out, or add mask where it wasn't put in. Very quick, very dirty, but it actually, when I take the time to make sure that I've maxed out my contrast before I start doing this, it's pretty quick and a simple process. My question earlier was, it wouldn't really matter what I'd done to select the mask, to select the subject. If my mask still had to be refined, I would still have to do all of these steps. This is probably not the best example, but let me exaggerate by going to a higher flow rate with a black brush in multiply and see if I can speed the process up just a little bit by going over more of it at once. And I think you'll see that by the way, I'm using my fingers because I can't find my editing tablet. This would be much more accurate and much quicker if I had a stylus that I was doing this with. I'll try and find it, but see how it's letting me get away with touching the subject, yet it's refining the mask. Well, this is basically all I do, and in 9 times out of 10, especially with the kind of subjects I have, this is good enough. I think I would want more definition in my mask if I was doing a lot of subjects like this with incredibly fine, hairy detail. But that's my basic workflow, and for most of the stuff I do, this is all I need. So I'm very interested to see what other folks are doing to use a workflow that's faster and easier than this, but involves the same small number of steps, hopefully. Then when I'm finished, by the way, with this, I just go back over it with the white brush and try to add back. You know what I'll do while you guys are demonstrating your technique? I'm going to find a more typical subject that I would be working on, and I'll show you how this works with the kind of stuff I normally photograph. And I think you'll see that it's pretty, it's
Yeah.
quick and dirty. But who else?
Well, I've got one for you, Alan.
Okay.
But on a different edge, and I wanted to show people because I haven't done any rail work yet, so I can do the photo stacking, which is the next level when I get my studio set up. So what I have on my screen, if I change it over, is I worked out something that has a lot of detail, but again, you want to switch it around a lot. So hold on while I move out of this and into Photoshop. And so this is a scene. It was taken with my iPhone, okay? And so I have 2 images here. I have the finished image. Let me just get you guys out of the way.
I can't see anything. Is it just me?
No, I
I'm
can't
trying to
see
find
anything
the
either.
show
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of your
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Share screen. There we go. All right. So this is
Have you got video on?
yes, I do.
Diane, once you click on share, then select the screen you're going to share, and then you have to click share again.
Okay.
Disappeared.
We'll give Diane a minute to reconnect, and
okay, I got mine ready, Alan.
okay, well, if that's okay with Bud,
Yeah, go for it.
All right, this
I'll
is
leave Diane a message.
okay. All right, was up. Okay. All right, so are you seeing
Yeah.
okay, so let me turn the mask off. All right, so this is an image I took yesterday, and my goal is to have the silky waterfalls, but the branches in front blurred. So I wanted to take a quick shot and a long shot. So I want to get rid of the branches from the original, the long shot. So I did a selection by color, and I wound up with some of this, some grayness in the mask. And so just to quickly turn black and white, I use the dodge and burn. So if I take the burn tool, I could just quickly go over those areas of the mask that I want to be dark, and I can go to dodge and brighten up. Sometimes you have to run back and forth so you don't over burn or over dodge the areas. Let me try and make my screen a little bit bigger. So on burn, I want to get rid of those grayer areas, and it's just quickly going over, and then switching to dodge, I could enhance the whiteness, and then I just flip back and forth between burn and dodge to clean up the mask. And so sometimes I will paint in a light color to start a mask edge, and then I use the dodge and burn to clean it up. So like what you were doing, Alan, where you were using the multiply tool and bringing more mask in, you could use this technique to just add more black to the mask quicker,
I like that.
because it's just working on the gray. Or if you switch it to burn dodge, it's just working on, it's lightening up the gray. And that's why you have to be careful, because if you try and burn, you might get rid of some of the what you want to keep in white. So you typically what I do is I have my opacity set around 10, for what I want to keep. So the white, my dodge, I will keep around 20%, and then my burn, I'll keep around 10%. So it doesn't, I got a little bit more leeway there. So
Diane, does the option key let you go back and forth, or do you have to go to the menu every time?
well, what I did is I changed my hotkeys for dodge and burn. So my O key will dodge, and my L key burn. L key dodges, and my O key burns.
Gotcha.
So I just use the keyboard to go back and forth quickly, and then I could change the brush size. I have a toolbox, so I could just change the brush size. And but I usually keep it on a hard brush, and like I said, the dodge I'll keep at about 20%. And then so here I'm getting too much of the background.
How about the tonal range sliders? Do you use those at the top?
Not generally. I just usually just kind of go in and
Okay.
and so here I might just bring the brush down to match it better, so I'm not affecting what I want to burn out. And then I'll go back, and so it's kind of a balance. It's typically what I use when I'm blending foregrounds and skies when I'm doing astro work. But if you have something hairy that has, that the mask selection just didn't quite do it well enough, you can go in and do a quick cleanup like that. And then when you come back to the original image, this one has some problems, because the quick image and the long image, I still had some of the original background, so that's the long exposure. and then the short exposure. And so I wanted to keep these limbs because they're in focus and they're not moving in the wind. Because this was like a 160.
That is a really handy approach. I can see how that would be so much more convenient in an image like Jillian's.
Yeah.
To really let you fly over those areas.
And I often use some color, a solid color that's not anywhere in my image, so I could see easier what I'm when I'm looking at the image itself, what I'm masking, what I'm not masking. So it's like here, I might want to keep this area over here, so I can see that it's got a lot of pink in it. So I think I need to kind of clean that in. And it sometimes just having a contrasting color just makes it easier to see what you're doing. And if you're not sure, you just turn that color off. And so it just, but you use something shocking, high contrast to what your starting image is. And so that's, a technique I learned from astrophotography. So this is not quite done, but it shows that the silky falls and then more of the in focus foliage in the front. So,
where were you to get this picture?
This is the upper falls of Letchworth State Park, the Genesee River. I'm currently in Hornell, New York, for another
Oh, okay. What a lovely spot.
Yeah, so I'm between Letchworth State Park and Watkins Glen, and so I wanted to do some waterfall photography while I'm on this road trip, and so
Anybody else have a masking technique they'd like to demonstrate?
I think Diane's back now, Bud, but I'll come up after that if you like.
Yeah. Okay, Diane is back. I don't see her.
Yeah. Diane's back.
Your microphone is off, Diane.
I can text her.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Okay.
I hear you.
All right, so I have somewhat similar to Julie but it's basically going to, I'm going to go share screen, hit what I want, and then share screen again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Now can you see my screen?
Nope.
Not yet.
All right.
Now we can.
All right. All right. All right. So I have this image, and this is the layers that I worked on to get it. So I'm in a combination with the three of you, basically, from an artistic standpoint. So I have my background layer. Then if I feel like I need to dim something, so I wanted to add just a little bit more color up here. So then what I do is I go into my channels, okay, and so I go at it from the point of red is your blues for a black and white mask, because I'm playing with black and white, but I'm not playing with black and white. The green is your it's your best one to sharpen. So I always sharpen in a green mask. Then my blue is my noise mask. So I'll clean up noise in the blue mask. So I do that, and that usually gets me back to back into the here. Then I can go in and use the method of so I selected the mask, I selected the blue channel, I copied the blue channel in here, expand this. So I have my copies. So then I select the blue, so it's got my marching ants, go back into layers, and I paste it in by hitting the mask. All right. Then after it's in and unselected, Command D, now what I can do for my blue channel, I want to add a little bit more of the blue. So I had a curves layer that I moved in, and I added more of the blue in there. So I just darken and I move this over a little bit, and that added a little bit more blue. You can barely see it, but it's night. It's like right at sunset. Then for my green channel, I sharpened it. I sharpened the mask and then applied it, and now it's a lot sharper. But when I'm using the mask, I use black, white, and gray. And then I can change. So I'm on the mask, on the green mask. Then I go into my paintbrush and I choose, not into color picker, cancel. So I go back to default. I go to black first, X on the black, then paintbrush, and I use overlay. And this is where I can decide how much I want. I'll use the opacity. The mode I always start with is overlay. So in the blue channel, I want to be able to just highlight some more of the blue back in here. So I want to reveal it. So I'm going to switch again. And now I'm just going to paint very lightly by dots and pieces in right on the outside edge, so I can get more detail, and paint up a little bit on some of the trees so you can see them. And so that gets me the blue that I want. And then I go into the green channel, and then I sharpen the mask, and then I go into here, and again, so the green will give me magenta, but it also will sharpen everything. So I want to make sure I can kind of sort of, mask off what I want to have as dull, like the corners. So I might take the black, go back to default, hit black, and then I want to mask off some stuff that's down here. I want to blend it in a little bit more. So I'll darken a whole bunch of stuff down here. All right. So that way it looks like it belongs in there. So it's not drawing your attention too much. And then I take the red channel, get that on. And then again, this one I use for more of the blue, and I'll just adjust that layer with opacity. And I will go down to color or luminosity and deal with that to make it sort of, get the blue in there that I want, and be able to have the sharpness. And what I can sometimes do on the red channel is I'll have the black, and I might even have it on normal. And if I feel like I need to paint something in, like it's just like these highlights here, I might just paint black right on the mask, because I don't want those white specks, because I find them distracting. So now I'll get a little bit more of the blue in there. So that's what I do. And then to top it off, I have this, I have a color fill layer, and then I have that set to color. And then I have an opacity set at 5, color, and that will give me even richer tones. And then if I don't like anything with that one's gonna get clipped. This one gets clipped to the next one down. Okay, so you see how it just popped all the yellows? So then I have this one, and then I have a curves for the blue. And then I would basically from here, I'll just do a merge visible and use that as a copy. So, and that's from the original, and this is the other one.
Nice.
So, but I use that in a lot of different ways. I use it a lot with the channels I'll use when I make masks, and I'm doing background layers, and then I keep building up layers on top of that of different objects. So I can use the luminosity if it's, you know, do I want it? And then I'll use also the blend if sliders. And then I'll use the style menu. So maybe if I need this branch over here to be a little bit, have more shadow down here underneath it a little bit, I might use a shadow detail on that one. But I really get into all of the particulars of color and what I want, what I don't want. But that took me about 15 minutes from all of it. And then I use the TK mats all the time. I love them. So, and that I would use for, like I said, different subjects, different, you know, what end effect I want. So I haven't done anything with my bugs yet because I might turn them into something really bizarre. So, especially playing with color.
Very cool.
Any questions on that one?
It is fascinating to see the variations in how folk are approaching this, but I have a feeling that all these methods are going to prove to be a matter of emphasis and degree. Nick, what do you have for us?
Can you stop sharing, Diane?
Yep. Getting
Thanks,
to that.
Diane.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Okay, this is the alternative to Photoshop, which I'm hoping I'm going to be able to okay, with Diane to finish, but show that this is not, wouldn't be such a scary move if anyone's contemplating it or following what Bud's shown us. All of that really is, it's what has allowed me to make so much progress and just adapt, you know, how it's done in Photoshop has allowed me to work out, all right, so Affinity needs me to do this and work out where I am. Even to the point, Bud, what you've just been showing, like with the information, yeah, Affinity does it differently, but the functionality is there and it's not too obscure. Just briefly to intro the subject here, this was, I think, Alan, it was a few weeks back, wasn't it? We did the macro talk on opportunity.
Yes.
This is exactly what this was. I think it was one Friday or something. I sort of finished work and noticed there was a moth on the inside of my front door. Had a few things to do and hoped it wouldn't fly away. And sure enough, later in the evening, it was still there. So got the tripod out, and in the end, the manual Novaflex rail, because I realized I wasn't going to do it with the focusing rail one. And after getting the flashes worked out, and that did actually manage to get enough pictures to do a stack. Then I got greedy and went for ×2, touched it with, just brushed it with the lens, it flew off, came back and landed somewhere I couldn't get the ×2s, but this is the ×1 images anyway. Before I pitch in on him, I've done just that 3-4 slides. If I just switch to those, just to sort of intro the selections, and I'm happy to, I'll do a PDF of this if you'd like me to, so we can put it on Discord or whatever.
That'd be great.
But this is just to sort of give an intro to finding the help and this sort of thing on Affinity, and then the specific functionality for the selections. So the Affinity help is actually all online, and you can get to it from the help menu in the app. And once it then opens up in the browser, and you can start searching, and you'll see on the screenshot there, my mouse is big enough for you, selections, and then all the bits it does. And further down, which I'll get to shortly, is the refining pixel selection edges, and that. Okay, so that's where I'm heading. The links in yellow take you to the various bits. So this one will take you to the help. Then there's the selection brush tool, which I'm going to use. And by doing a search, it gives you all the hits in the help. And then the refining part, it was in one of the search results. And so you can drill down into that, but we're basically not far off back to the first page I showed. Actually, that link isn't correct, so I will correct that link. Yeah, the two links on this page aren't correct, so I'll sort those out before I share it, because they should give you to take somebody specifically, to the specific page. Okay. If I go back to Affinity, I will sort of fast forward a bit because I think we all know how to do selections, but so it would just give me more time to show you the refining bit as it does it. So I have got the selection brush at the moment selected, and that's under, you can just hit the W key and it will do that once you've got the thing. But as we just move the old zoom window out of the way, you can see in the history here, I'm just sort of starting off. I've actually selected my background image, the original one, duplicated it, renamed it, and then started the selection. And all of this is basically, I think the actual brush width was higher. This one I did it a little earlier, but it was up around the 200, 300 mark. So you can get a pretty rough image on this. If you're careful with position, placing the center and this sort of thing of the brush. But it can be, as you can see down the bottom here, it has just got a bit too close. And so it's picked up the edge of the image, but not a problem, because if we then hold down the Option key, the Alt key in Windows, you can then, when you start brushing, it basically reverses the thing. Instead of adding, it's going to subtract. And actually these are the modes up the top left here. So you see we've got add, and then we got subtract. That's the width is the brush thing. The snap edges, yeah, we definitely want to use that because it's never going to pick up the edges otherwise. Okay, so you should start to see, if I go between those two steps, you see how I was brushing in, it's caught the bottom of the image, the border. If I go to that, just by now, I think I'd reduced the brush down. I think it's what it's saying there, about 30 pixels, and it's now picking up a reasonable edge of the wing. And we can keep going down, just tidying up the selection. Some point here, it's gonna, there we go. Now it's started to pick up the legs and the head. And just keep going. And you can see now we've got a reasonable selection, but there's things like the area between the leg and the top of the wing there that it hasn't done. And most of the detail on the tips of the wings, aren't there. But that's where I'll now pick it up on for the refine part of this. And when we go into the refine function, you'll see that it puts a red map around the whole thing based on the selection where I got to with that. And then we get the window down here. And probably if I step down things from the top down, just to show what this is all about. But there's 5 options of how you display when you're working effectively with the bit you're refining back to. So we've got the image of the moth, and what we obviously want to do is define the area around it. So you can go black, which I've played around with this one, and yeah, it has its sort of uses with some parts of it. You can go white, which we all know white is perhaps a lot more difficult to work with, but not to dismiss it completely. You can do effectively like a mask black and white, but at this stage with refining, I find that still it's more of a sort of a coarse setting, because I find I need to see you know, the actual image and see, you know, the different parts of it. That, you know, the scales, particularly on this one, the different colors of them when we zoom in, how those, you know, how well you're actually, you know, you got to the edge and that sort of thing. So I tend to find I stick with the red matte here. The matte edges is important. The default is it's on. If you switch it off, it's rather like the snap to edges on the selection brush. It then doesn't happen. You're basically very much in manual mode. So I leave that on. The border is interesting because if I click on it, you'll see it puts the border around it, and it's not like a force field or anything, but if you leave it too large, particularly with what we're doing, it's almost like you're fighting it to get it to the edge of the insect. So I generally wind it all the way back to naught, and you can see if it will just hold there. I think if I zoom in, you'll see it does define it a bit better, but it really does bring it up to within a few pixels of the thing, and then you're not fighting it. Although you've still got a border, you're not actually fighting it at all. Now, the smoothing is useful, but it is something where you can overcook it. And what I found with using this is, because by the time I'm doing the really fine stuff, I've zoomed in, so I'm seeing the actual pixels of the edge of the insect and that. I usually find if I go to maybe 3, 4, 5 pixels, that's probably about enough to sort of just sort of, as it were, it's not quite feathering because there's another feather tool beneath here, but it just smooths the transition so that when you're painting in, it's not too harsh, and it sort of blends to the thing rather than just having a hard stop on it. And the feathering, I think the most I generally find with this is a couple of pixels is probably enough because of that thing of going down to, you know, the pixel level, and you know, sort of to get the real, you know, fineness, you know, finishing touches to it. The ramp I leave alone, and what that seems to be more beneficial to is if you're doing perhaps a landscape type view, it gives a much better blend from one to the other rather than having a harsh stop on something. But from what I've seen in the help and that, the way they describe it, that the range on it is way above, I think, where we're working with the insects. You know, with the feather and smooth around 2 to 4 pixels sort of thing, it just doesn't seem to have any function. So I leave it at 0, and wouldn't bother actually bringing it down at all because the smooth and feather deal with this. Now, the next bit is, I think I'll just warn, is this tool, and I don't know if Photoshop does it as well, but if you want to zoom in on this, you don't want to switch to the zoom tool because it will take you out of this, and any work you've done on refining the mask on this, or rather selection, you're going to start again. It basically is like hitting the cancel button. So whilst we're in the refine tool on this, it really is make use of keystrokes and this sort of thing. Now on the Mac, I've not been able to get it going with the Wacom tablet, which is a little disappointing, but they do give you some keyboard options, and the Control and Option or Control and Alt keys held down together. And then if you go to, I think, your mouse or the trackpad, but if we go to the trackpad and I'm doing 2 fingers and just dragging down gently, you can see I can then you know, zoom in on the thing. But the other one is, excuse me, I can, with 2 fingers on the trackpad, pan around without affecting what's going on here. Okay, so I think in view of time, if I just show a couple of bits on the insect, why it is I've sort of persevered with this, because the the functionality really does allow you to get some pretty good selection here once you get going on it. Okay, so I'll come right in on the arm and go back to the tablet, because the next bit is if I leave the adjustment brush at matte, what that's going to do is, yes, you're painting effectively with this red matte, and it will then come along and supposedly correct it. But where I found the functionality really comes alive is switching to the foreground, between foreground and background, because the foreground gives you the painting on the inset. Okay, so I can draw on those, and because of the smoothing and feathering I've set, you can see how it's actually working for me as well. I'm not doing all of this, you know, I'm showing it where I'd like it to be, and then it's looking at it and going, all right, I've got you, I'll have a look at that and, you know, sort that one out. If I then switch to the background, I can start taking out these bits that I didn't get to with the selection. So you can be a little bit rough and ready back in the selection tool. And when we get to the refine, this is where it'll, you know, really start to play, you know, sort of come to its fore. Now, you can, with these bits, basically draw a line, and you can see how it's doing a pretty good job of filling up to the edge of the insect, yeah? And if I just are able to show as well, you've got some really fiddly bits here. All right, and this is where I'm saying about I'm down to the pixels. Now this, the camera, the Canon, it's only a 15 megapixel camera. So it's not, you know, sort of, I'd love to see what, say, like my mirrorless is going to do at 24, to see how far, you know, down I got. Unfortunately, obviously, I'm not going to be able to do the same picture, but there we go. But you can also then pick up with
Nick?
Yeah.
Nick, yeah, this is Bud. We're running short on time. Can you pull it together?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I mean, I can stop there and come out on it, and just show you the final bit. So you see how it's tidied that up nicely. If we do the apply that, you see how the selection's gone. Okay, so now, in fact, actually, if I just go back, yep, sorry. And I'll just go back into refine a minute, because that missed the bit. It's going to make a hash of it, but in view of time, you then got the options about what you do with it. So if we do a new layer with mask and do apply, then when you come back out, you can go into your full functionality with your mask and that. All right. And with that, it messed, because I went back in, the refinements I'd done hadn't carried on, hadn't paled at that point. You can then start to refine the mask using, you know, your black or white, you know, your brush with your black or white. And Bud, what you showed with, you're replacing color and the contiguous brushing, I found that works brilliantly on all of this. You know, you all of that just picks up the pixels you want, and off you go. Okay. And yep, he brings that back. If I switch off the background, you can see we got most of the transparency there, but then I would switch to my eraser brush and the background erasure, and similarly use the contiguous functionality there, so that I can remove bits like this and get down to a really clean image. And then if I shift him up to there and switch on the background, you can see it's all right. I mean, it's because I rushed the bits. But all of that, you can get a very nice definition on all the parts, such that it gives a really nice tight line round it, and your background fill when you do it, gives you like you're seeing at the edges of the wings and that sort of thing. Okay.
Very nice, Nick. That does look like a
Good looking program, yeah.
yeah, good program. But have you ever used Affinity?
I have not.
But as I say, I mean, it's certainly one I'd say, yeah, look, I managed to do that from what I've seen is possible in Photoshop, rooted around, found the functions. And so it must go back the other way too, yeah?
Yeah.
The refining brush noise thing. I would imagine Affinity probably haven't reinvented the wheel on that one.
Very
Is
good.
this a raw file or what format is this?
It started as a raw, and then because it's stacked, it then got pushed into all the TIFF images to do that. So it's the output from Xeorine that this file is about.
So it's a TIFF.
Yeah.
Right.
You can see on my layers on the right there that I just put them. You can see I then, because of being able to do the masks, you can then obviously select out the darker bits, the lighter bits, and this sort of thing. And will this work? Yeah, it's not far off if I switch those on. No, not him. But I think there's a bit of difference there.
You can adjust colors as well in Affinity?
All of that's there. Yeah, it's only I haven't got to the bottom yet of what Bud's taught us. Is all the channels are there. Okay, on the right here. And I spent a good half hour in last week's Zoom working out why my brush wasn't doing anything, and I worked out that it's because these are switched off. So things like my eye and that. So that's where I am with the channels. But from what I'm picking up in the videos, I certainly want to have a look at those to see, how I can refine the method even further.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Can you stop screen sharing?
Sure. When it all goes small, how do we Oh, hang on, I know what it is. So I always do that at work as well. The
there
big
you
red
go.
button, isn't it?
Does anybody else have anything they want to show? We're getting short on time. No?
Yeah, I think this has been a really intriguing look at the various different ways. I know that Patrick had a technique that was something that I was looking forward to see, and we'll get him to share that with us next time that he's here. But yeah, a lot of different ways to skin this cat. Though I must say, when it comes to sophisticated accuracy, but I love what you're doing with the color channels. I think that would have saved a huge amount of time on this particular subject.
Well, what you can do, I just wanted to show you real quick. If you load up one of these channels like this, and there's some debris in there, you can get your paintbrush and you can go to, multiply if you wish, and you can go in here and really kind of fine tune this stuff. Now, multiply is obviously too strong for that because we have it on a 50%, but if you get down into the lower percentages and a smaller brush, you can get rid of some of that background stuff pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I like to use is hard mix, as you've heard me say. So hard mix is either black or white. You can see how hard mix is cleaning that up. Let me give you a little bit more. But if you look in this area right in here, you see how it leaves everything alone that's white. Can you appreciate that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let me make a bigger brush so I can make a broader sweep. But if I come down this whole side with hard mix,
Mm-hmm.
that's how quick it works with this system.
Yeah. Impressive.
You know, and you turn it back on, you know, if I still highlight the mask, I can still take this stuff out. You see how I'm getting rid of the gray?
Yeah, I like that.
So I think using a mask, and this is all I wanted to say, was use a mask, you know, it gets a lot of detail, and you can go and clean up the mask because hard mix is either black or white. Multiply and overlay have shades of gray. If you want a mask that's only black and white, hard mix is a good way to go. Hard mix puts down black or it'll put down white. If I wanted to put down white, I can put down white and get rid of all these things out here in the outside. I can go over the hairs and I can make the white whiter. So for masks, I find hard mix is the cat's meow. I mean, you could obviously paint with normal out here, but you see what I'm saying? All of that fuzz is kind of gone.
Very
All right.
impressive.
Anybody else got anything, or shall we conclude?
Yeah, I think that I think your summary of this next time is going to be pure gold.
I wanted to ask Bud if he could put his PowerPoint slides from last week and this week on Discord in a PDF.
You talking to Alan?
No, I'm talking to Bud, to you.
Yeah, can I put them as a PDF? I'll try.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That'd be great. Yeah, the summary slides you're talking about, Gillian.
And last week's one too.
I'll see what I can do.
Sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much for attending. Bud, thank you for doing all the work. And thanks for everybody who brought pictures and ideas and thoughts today. I think that this is a subject we're going to probably end up revisiting multiple times in the future, but I can already see I'm going to be changing some things. So good work. See you guys next week.
Jillian, I'd looked at your ant thing and I'll send you the PDF I did.
Okay, thank you very much.
PSD.
Very good. Thank you again, everybody, for coming, and we will see you at Zoom next week or in a live stream before then. The interview with Charlie Krebs will be out in the next day or two.
And thanks to everyone who demoed, and Bud and Alan. It was great Zoom.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Got a clap.
Applause.
Applause.
I'm off to the Olympics now.
Are you really? Have fun.
All right.
See you guys.
Saturday, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.